Welcome back to In Business. Our next guest is a member of a pretty exclusive club. He's the governor of a state without a budget deficit. Only Alaska, North Dakota, Montana, and Arkansas. This morning, we're joined by the governor of that state, Mike Beebe of Arkansas, whose state actually has a $23 million budget surplus. He joins us from Little Rock this morning. Thank you for joining us today, Mr. Governor. You know, the irony must be sweet, considering that after the Depression, Arkansas was the only state in the union to default on its bonds. The fact that you're now one of the few states without a deficit, you've got to be enjoying that title.
Yeah, I mean, we're very pleased that we've done so well in the midst of the worst recession in my lifetime. But we're not immune. We just have to realize that conservative budgeting and job creation through very aggressive economic development, and then tying all that with the importance of education, has allowed Arkansas to withstand some of the problems that some of the other states have faced.
So you cut more than $200 million from the budget. You've pretty much avoided layoffs here. Explain the model that Arkansas has.
Well, I think virtually every state has a requirement for a balanced budget, but Arkansas has some tools that other states don't have. I recently was talking to some other governors who were lamenting the fact that their House or their Senate or both or committees couldn't agree on the way to solve their deficit problems. In Arkansas, once the legislature sets the budget, all the responsibility then shifts to the governor. And so with a stroke of a pen, I can raise or lower the amount of spending within the categories and within the parameters of what the budget is set. And so I don't have to call a committee meeting or a legislative session. Now, the good news is I can solve these problems and anticipate some of them and try to address them on the front end. The bad news is if I mess it up, there's only one person to blame, and that's me.
Well, a key, particularly in a re-election year. But, sir, let me ask you, you have been somewhat critical, though, of Washington's efforts on the health care front, and particularly some of the lack of funding on Medicaid. I know there's a key vote that's expected to happen today, even on $26 billion. Some of that perhaps help on just that, on Medicaid. Do you need this money?
Well, I think all the states probably could use more help with Medicaid funding because of the spiraling health care costs. My criticism of what went on in Washington centered more on the fact that I didn't think they attacked the underlying problem of cost containment and trying to find a new model with which to pay for health care. But I think most states would benefit from the FMAP extension, and certainly Arkansas would as well. We're not in any trouble in this education funding that everybody else is talking about, and while I certainly understand other states are, we prioritize education to the point we haven't cut any dollars from education. And
but so, you do have a shortage of doctors?
No, we're doing all right with doctors compared to the rest of the country. We could always use more. Our problem is that in rural areas, it's the location where the doctors end up going that creates more of a problem for us than anything else. Doctors in today's world want to more often than not be in larger cities, metropolitan areas, and so they concentrate in our larger cities. And so our shortage of doctors is more related to geographic issues than it is to anything else.
Now, state revenue did increase. A portion of that coming, very importantly, from taxes on corporations. Explain that to me, because Arkansas is so dependent on the agricultural sector.
Well, actually, we do have a huge agricultural presence, and it's helped us withstand some of the vagaries of this economy. But we're pretty diversified, too. We've added approximately 25,000 manufacturing jobs in the midst of this terrible, terrible recession. Now, we're not immune, as I've indicated. We suffer like everybody else, but we've actually been able to offset some of that. But our biggest income sources, revenue sources for the state, sales tax and individual income tax, not corporate income tax. We do have a corporate income tax, and it has gone up in the last few months in terms of the actual collections, but it's not the major factor. Those other two are the major income sources. And
I know you've been talking about the sales tax on groceries. You are running for election again here, sir. As an incumbent, there's a lot of anti-incumbent sentiment right now. I want to ask you how that campaign is going, and much more on your state's economy in just a few moments.
Sure.
We do have to take a quick break, though, so if you would stay with us, that'd be great. Welcome back to In Business. We're back now with Arkansas Governor Mike Beebe, who joins us from Little Rock this morning. His state just one of four not piled under debt these days when you take a survey of most of the U.S. states. The governor himself has brought in close to $4 billion in new investments since he took office about 3 years ago. Governor, before this we were mentioning that you are running for re-election here. Is the economy sort of the crowning campaign issue for you?
Well, I think so. I think the economy is very important, but you can't talk about the economy without talking about education. The two cornerstones of my administration and what I believe in is the link between education, and that's cradle-to-grave education. That's everything from pre-K to PhDs and research. But the link between education and economic development is so intertwined that we don't talk about one of them without talking about the other one. But certainly if you talk to most people, jobs and the ability to be able to know that you're going to have a job and a good job is at the forefront of what people are concerned about.
Sir, a lot of focus on your state, particularly in the financial community, because of your Senator Blanche Lincoln, who became so prominent during the debate about financial reform. You yourself are running for re-election here. Give me a sense of what the climate's like, because there is a real sense that this anti-incumbent sentiment is a real tripping point.
Well, and it's true that there's a huge anti-incumbent sentiment across the country, I think, and Arkansas is not immune from that, although most of the anger in Arkansas is directed at Washington. But that doesn't mean there's not anger all the way around. Arkansans are a unique bunch of people. They're really an independent populist bunch. They will discern what they believe to be is in their best interest and then vote for the individual, much more so than you see along party lines in a lot of places. So it's very important for people to trust their elected officials, and if they don't, then if they don't trust them, then as a result of that, they punish them.
So you don't feel, sir, that so much of the polling that reflects, some real skepticism about President Obama and sort of a loss of support there publicly, that's not hurting you? Is that what you're saying? Oh,
I think there's some bleed over of it, but frankly, Arkansans vote for the person on an individual race, and while this state, for example, was, I think, the second worst state for President Obama in the last election, but at the same time we end up with virtually 70 or 75% Democratic majority in the legislature.
All right. Thank you, Governor, for making time. Joining us this morning, Governor Mike Beebe from Arkansas.